We are continuing to follow more of your major headlines from today. Happening today, the 22-year-old man charged with killing Charlie Kirk will have a court hearing where he and his newly appointed legal counsel will decide whether they want a preliminary hearing where the judge will determine if there is enough evidence against him to go forward with a trial. That's according to the Associated Press. Now, joining us now to break this all down and what we can expect later on today is a legal analyst, Jeremy Rosenthal. Jeremy, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Big moments here as we're following this case. There's a lot of interest in it. It was such major breaking news, and it's going to continue for several months now, it seems. But let's talk about this preliminary hearing and whether Tyler Robinson and his attorneys are going to decide to go with that. What are the pros and cons?
There's not a lot of pros to waiving a hearing like this. When you are facing the death penalty, you're not really in the rights waiving business, if you will. Catherine Nestor is his newly appointed public defender. She is, from everything that's out there, an extremely qualified lawyer, has handled some high profile cases. What happens is you get a preliminary hearing in Utah. This is the case in many states where you can contest just sort of the probable cause in the case. Think of it in football terms like a scrimmage. You get just sort of a chance to kind of just sort of see what the opponent's about, see how certain witnesses testify. You would get access to a little bit of the evidence that the state has to put on, that the prosecution has to put on. Not that you think that you're going to win it, because if you win it, he gets out. And I don't think there's any realistic chance of that. But I would anticipate that they don't waive this hearing, that they want to go ahead and have it. And just to see if they can kind of feel out their opponent just a little bit, use this hearing as a discovery tool to kind of figure out what's going on. So today is about whether or not he is going to ask for that preliminary hearing or to set the case for an arraignment, which is just sort of a pretrial issue. So I would think that they're in discovery mode. They want to learn as much as they possibly can about the charges that they're facing. And they're going to try to really feel out any type of defensive strategy that they can sort of get a hold of here.
We've been hearing a lot that prosecutors are going to be seeking the death penalty in this case. How difficult would it be to actually get that death penalty as the punishment for this entire thing? I mean, what kind of challenges are prosecutors looking at with this?
Having somebody sentenced to the death penalty is a really hard standard to accomplish, to achieve, if you're a prosecutor, and rightfully so, right? Capital punishment is the most severe, the most extreme. You can't undo it. You've really got to prove to the jury that he represents what's called a future danger. And that's can be a difficult standard. You've got to get there by first showing that he is qualifies for an aggravating factor. That is that he committed this murder and that at least one other factor was present, that he also endangered other people in the public. They're alleging that this was done in the presence of children, which I think it's going to be very easy to prove that. And then on top of that, you've got to prove that he had, that he is a future danger going forward, which they're going to point to a lot of the premeditation. They're going to point to a lot of the facts that, look, when he murdered Charlie Kirk, this was not something he just woke up and did one morning. This is something that he meticulously planned, that he reconned, that he very carefully chose to do, that he had not one, not two, not three. He had 10, 20 opportunities to back off and say, no, I'm not going to do this. That's the type of evidence that the prosecutor is going to point to show that he's a future danger and that he is worthy of the death penalty. If I'm defending the case, then that a victory here is keeping his life and not allowing him to be executed. I don't know if there's a deal that's possible, like in the Brian Kohberger case, when Erika Kirk spoke. She forgave him. I don't know how far that grace goes, and I don't know that she's going to feel the same way in a year or 2 years or whenever this comes to whenever that type of decision comes. So those are sort of the legal boundaries that are kind of beginning to form here.
So I'm glad that you mentioned, first of all, his wife, Erika Kirk, forgiving the suspect in this. It's what we saw within her speech for his memorial. Because I wanted to segue and talk about how much of an impact it has on this case, the fact that it was Charlie Kirk, someone who is relatively well known, a political activist, and he was the one that was murdered. I mean, what kind of impact does that have here?
It may carry a very significant impact. When you're a prosecutor, you develop a very close relationship, oftentimes, with the victim and with their families. And a lot of prosecutors, their client is the state. Their client is the state of Utah for these lawyers. But they see themselves oftentimes they're the lawyers for the victims and trying to get the victims justice. So a lot of times they will take very seriously what the victims want. They'll also understand what the public wants. If Erika Kirk is of the mindset to spare that the government should spare Tyler Robinson's life, then the government's going to take that, I think, extremely seriously. And it probably does afford them a little bit of political cover to, if they are going to make a deal like that where he goes to prison for life without parole, and Erika Kirk is in favor of it, then whoever the elected officials are and whoever the powers that be are prosecuting this case, they can look back and say, well, look, we did what she wanted. So that really sort of gives them cover. If she didn't want this, then I don't know that they would ever agree to a life sentence here. I think they would try to seek the death penalty. It's a very complex decision to make, and it's a very hard one. You're talking about another human being, whether they live or die, and that's never an easy discussion.
Well, Jeremy, there's still a lot more questions than there are answers. Again, this is only going to be the second court appearance, I believe, for the suspect. So very early in these stages, but we're going to keep in touch with you as we see how this develops. Jeremy Rosenthal, legal analyst. We always appreciate your time.
Thank you, Carel.